Appraisals and zoning. Does a proposed development negatively affect the sales prices and appraisals of neighboring properties? I'm Jay Knight. Let's explore that today on Build Baby Build. Introduce yourself and how long you've been in the industry.
Sure.
Anything else is important?
Well, I'm Tommy Statham. I'm a certified general real property appraiser. I have a degree in it. I joke that I've appraised everything from a $500 trailer in Whitesburg to the Russell Federal Building downtown. So I have a diverse practice. But I'm also a third generation in the real estate industry in multiple roles. I'm also a landlord. I'm also have done small amount of development, nothing like you've done, but a little bit of development along the way. Um, it's So I have a unique perspective. I also have the highest license the state offers. I also have the same license in Alabama and Florida as well. I'm not saying I'm smart. I'm just saying I've been at it a long time, 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's been an interesting ride. You know, I have PTSD from the Great Recession, as most anybody in the industry does. But it's it's a always an interesting time. But I do think my perspective's pretty unique because, you know, I sleep next to a builder.
And he's a very handsome man.
Yeah, that's right. My wife is I laugh because my wife's a builder, and everybody's, she works with men every day, all day, and people are like, well, I bet that's interesting. I said, yeah, she tells men what to do all day, and she comes home and does the same darn thing. I mean,
That's true.
It's no different. So, but it's an interesting time. I deal with municipalities. I hear the stories of municipalities. Um, it's just a unique time. It's different than it was when I first got in the business. I'll say that.
So 25 years, you were starting your business in around 2000.
Right, that's right. Well, I worked for others for several years, so I've had my own private practice for 20 years, give or take. So
Wow, that's impressive.
yeah.
Young guy doing that. But one thing I hear all the time, and it's very difficult to get people to believe me, is that if I build smaller homes on smaller lots next to a neighborhood of larger homes and larger lots, that my smaller homes are going to bring down the value and the sales price of the larger homes and the larger lots. Can you tell me what your thoughts are on that? And
Well, not to be disclaimery, but every piece of real estate has its own unique factors. But if we're going to look at the 30,000-foot view and just look at that scenario, let me ask one simple question about what you just provided. So we've got large estate lots, larger homes, or are you talking about larger production homes, different product type?
typically what's happening right now, and I've got three of these. Then their surrounding neighborhoods were all built 20 years ago. Let's say their lot sizes are 100-foot wide, and houses are 3,000 square feet. And what I'm proposing are homes on 50-foot lots that are 1,800 square feet. And truthfully, the 1,800 square feet house built in today's cost will be significantly higher than the 3,000 square foot house was 20 years ago. But I'm just curious what you think.
Again, in this scenario, are we talking about streets joining, or are we just talking about two parcels next to each other?
90% of them are just independent.
Yeah. So the simple answer is the two things are irrelevant. When the appraiser goes to look to appraise Mrs. Jones' standalone new 1,800 square foot house, that appraiser's not looking at those 25-year-old older product. It's irrelevant. They'll never, because they don't compete for the same market share, right? The 3,000 square foot buyer is not the 1,800 square foot buyer ever. Um, you know, ever. I'm thinking only we're talking no really never. They're not going to compete with each other. They'll never be on the same plane
Right.
if there's 20 years age difference. Now, if there's a year age difference or there's active building going on, I still think it competes for a different market share, and it's not really going to drive value, because the thing you would do is if an appraiser tried to use a sale out of there, you'd say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't pass the smell test. They don't compete for the same market share.
My contention, and I'm willing to be wrong, is that if you own a 3,000 square foot house on an 18,000 square foot lot, that's a traditional 100 by 180 foot lot.
Third of an acre.
Yeah. And I come across the street and I build an 1,800 square foot house today on a 6,000 square foot lot. If you try to assign a prorated value, so my lot today, that 6,000 square foot lot, is going to cost $100,000.
Yeah.
And that 18,000 square foot lot, although it's 3 times bigger than that 6,000 square foot lot, it's not going to be worth $300,000.
No.
But it's certainly worth at least $100,000.
The intended use for the lot is still just one residence. It
Right.
doesn't matter.
Right. But it's bigger. So I could say that there's that me selling expensive homes on a 6,000 square foot lot drives up the appeal for the 18,000 square foot lot. Maybe not the value, but the marketability.
I think the marketability, yeah, I would not disagree with that. But again, I'm just going to say you're comparing apples and oranges, and they're not going to compete with each other.
Yeah.
Only in the mass appraisal sense of a tax assessment is there even a stretch, and that's something I could go in before the board and argue every time that it's still apples and oranges and win.
Okay. And then what about, so that 3,000 square foot house that was purchased for $100 a square foot 20 years ago is now the new square footage price has been reset to probably $225 to $250 a square foot. How does an appraiser treat that? So if you have no comps, the only comp you've got is that 1,800 square foot new home. Would you ever?
It's not a comp.
But would you ever try to create a square foot cost so that you could build a value for that
Well,
house?
here's the simple thing, Jay. In residential appraisal of single family dwellings, price per square foot is a result. It's not a factor. Do you understand what I mean?
No.
Okay. The appraiser adjusts and does the sales comparison approach based on a whole dollar amount. A house sold for $250,000, 3 comps on the street, one for $240,000, one for $245,000, one for $250,000. They're all 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. They're 1,600 to 1,700 square feet. One's got a 2-car, one's got a 3. You adjust for the differences on the whole dollar amount. You do not adjust price per square foot. It is a result. HGTV has made everybody think that price per square foot matters in that sense. It doesn't. Again, it's the result. It's not the factor. It's not how it's done. It's done on the whole dollar amount.
Okay, I thought there was a process where appraisers basically couldn't find comps and they assigned cost of replacement.
If the appraiser can't find comps, you increase the parameters of the search until you do find comps. Now, if I don't know, if you drop somebody out in the middle of Madison, Georgia to build this 1,800 square foot product that's never been built out there, that's when it gets really difficult. But if we're talking about a typical market anywhere in the metro where there's somewhere to compare to, you keep expanding the scope until you find the comparables. And it might even be in a different high school district. One could be in Southwest DeKalb and one be in Redan, or one be in Stars Mill or McIntosh. But if the product's the same, it's going to draw, that's one factor, but it's not the only factor, right? Most areas, the schools are comparable. It's not well, this school's so much better. That's marketing.
Yeah.
That's not reality.
So that's if we're trying to zone a piece of property next to a larger home on a larger lot,
Right.
neighborhood full of larger
Huh?
homes and larger lots. What about the situation where I'm going in to an area and it's the same? The neighboring properties have 1,800 square foot houses on 6,000 square foot lots, and they're concerned that my 1,800 square foot houses on 6,000 square foot lots is going to bring their value down.
Again, is the age the same? Or are you talking about the product's
No,
20 years old?
their house is 10 to 20 years old.
Again, it should make all the boat in that scenario. If anything, it could make all the boats rise. But the issue is not for that older property. The issue is for your beginning sales in the new property, where the appraiser has no choice, but he's got to use a resale in a typical new construction.
So they hurt me more than I hurt them.
Well, in the beginning, but
Yeah.
once you have your own
We
momentum,
reset
it's over. But I would think it would make, because hey, well, we can't get availability in Chisel Mills new neighborhood here. But look at that resale over there that's 2 or 3 years old. That's all right,
Yeah.
but wait a minute, all of a sudden, in the last 5 years, there's been some appreciation, right, in the market on any product in most markets in Metro Atlanta. Again, we only work in, this is not real estate is not a nationwide product. It is a individual. The only thing I know is the Southeast. Okay.
But the logic is
The
same.
logic, big picture, 30,000 is the same.
Yeah.
But again, my examples are only going to be here because it's the
That's
only
what you
place
do,
I
yeah.
work. Long term, it will benefit. When the product's very similar, it will benefit. I think of the one where Amanda's first house is. It benefited from the new construction later in its life cycle after the recession.
Because
Right.
it raised all the appraised values.
Right, that's right. And well, I mean, the activity did, but we've also had inflation lately. And some of this supposed appreciation is inflation. I would argue if the product type is the same, the best thing that can happen is for somebody to build the same product next door. It protects you. Because I will say that if the age range is close enough and the product is the same, eventually everybody benefits from either one. Does that make sense?
Now, it makes sense to me because I'm a believer that more people bring more restaurants, entertainment options,
New grocery stores.
new grocery stores, more urgent emergency response capacity from the municipality. We had to move from one area just because they didn't have emergency services, and that became important to us a few years ago. But and it's because they have no people.
Right.
They have no people, and the schools are suffering because of it.
Well, yeah, there are, but that market you're speaking of is not really even a Metro Atlanta market. It's a fringe rural market next door. It is the place where the normal person, the manager at AutoZone and his wife, the preschool teacher, that's the only place they can afford a new home in our South Metro market.
But because they're rural, like you said, they don't have the sewer that allows for any density, and so
Right. Oh yeah. And they're
they
not.
don't have
And they're not
people,
going
they don't
to.
have restaurants, and they don't have grocery stores or anything like that. Okay, so let's just test it. So, at what product could harm a nice neighborhood? Is an apartment complex goes in next door? Does that harm you, or does the townhome neighborhood going in next door, does that harm a traditional neighborhood next door?
I'm not Karnak the Magnificent. I don't know. I can't sit here and tear open the envelope and tell you. Okay.
Right.
As a overall real estate participant, maybe even not an appraiser in this statement I'm making. An apartment product has a life cycle, just like a shopping center, just like anything else. The best tenants go to the new one, and it trickles down, whether it's a shopping center or an apartment complex. I wonder what the case study's going to be on these rental-only neighborhoods. I think of Poplar Road in Coweta County. I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's going to be an interesting case study to watch and see. I think the least negative impact is the similar product of single family or single family, period. Apartments are only as good as the people manage them.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of really great markets around Metro Atlanta, especially, and then we do business in Auburn, and one of our partners has presence in the Panhandle of Florida, and it seems like the apartment complex, it has its life cycle, but then we know places locally, like around Kyle Parkway, and those that, even though the apartment complexes are 60 years old, if you could get a tract to develop for single family there, you'd do it in about 2 seconds if you could.
Oh, sure. Oh, I agree.
There are places where it deteriorates, but it does, because real estate is always developing, stabilizing, deteriorating, stabilizing again,
Right.
and developing again.
Somewhat. There's still parts of Metro Atlanta that have deteriorated and never recovered.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's a yet.
You can't compare East Cobb or around the Braves Stadium now to other different parts. Every place is unique, right? And some people are braver than others. They go take a chance, and now I'm thinking about the infill lots, you know what I mean? The 2 lots, they're off of Moreland Avenue that, hey, they're going to take a chance, and buy 4 air conditioning compressors before they can get it sold. But, but again, we are talking about a bigger product type, 40 lots, 60 lots, whatever it is, 100 lots. It creates momentum. It creates its own, it's not impacting negatively what surrounds it. If anything, it brings better.
Yeah, that's my contention.
Well, it's my 25-year experience.
Right.
I could go back and find a case study. The question, the latest question was multifamily or rental neighborhoods. I'm wondering if that's going to be the rental. It's a single family thing, but it's held and rented by institutional or, wealthy investor or whatever the scenario is. We don't have enough data to know what that's going to do. We're going to look back at that in 10 or 15 years. You'll be on your yacht in the Caribbean.
Yeah, right. 10 or 15 years, I might, my kids might have a yacht.
I'll be honest. I see just in my general workings with government that went from people wanting to help you to almost people not wanting to help you I don't know who they think they're benefiting.
Well, they're using the appraisal myth as a cudgel to beat us up on zoning. Because yesterday's community activist is today's city council person or county commissioner. Actually, I've met a lot through my years. Most of them are there with the best of intention. Unfortunately, the masses come out, and at the zoning hearing is typically me and an attorney, and there'll be 100 people
with torches and pitchforks.
Yeah, they're against the zoning, and we're going to get into all these things, but one of the main things is that we're going to hurt the value of their property. And I could see if I was doing a quarry or a landfill or something like that, a different use. You mentioned the kind of general typical use. If it's for residential use, then I don't think it's an issue. I do think a landfill or manufacturing facility or some noxious thing where fumes or smells come over my property.
Yeah, the pool product place that caught on fire out there, and
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah, that might be an issue.
I've appraised similar, and it does negatively impact. Mrs. Jones bought her house in 1962, and they opened the pool chemical manufacturer place, and now there's been these fires. Yeah, there's probably a case study to see, wait a minute, that negatively impacts something. There's
Right.
no doubt about it.
But people don't negatively impact
No.
other people, and
No.
and because people on their own are not detrimental to a community, they are the community.
That's right.
And so we need people. So I think it's interesting.
This this recent development of what we call now entitlement. I'm not talking about individual entitlement. I'm talking about entitlement as it comes from zoning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just nuts enough to think zoning's unconstitutional, period.
Mm-hmm.
But this new layer called entitlement, where you've had a piece of property zoned for a certain density for 35 years, and now you decide, Mr. Property Owner, that I want to cash out. I want to sell my property and do something different. Mm-hmm. I've paid taxes. This idea that now the surrounding property owners say, I like to look at your trees.
Yeah.
Well, baby, write a check.
Yeah.
And you can look at those trees as long as you want to.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you are stealing. It's like me breaking into your 401k and saying, you know what? You don't need $800,000 in your 401k.
Yeah.
You only need 300.
Yeah.
Now, people don't realize that. They don't realize that. The pitchfork crowd doesn't realize that. And I can get pretty wound up about this. As a long-term
Go ahead.
property owner, you know, it's really scary. And it's usually the turbo Republican people that are the worst at it. And I say that again as a conservative. I'm not, but, you know, the most cooperative juries I've ever been around are Democratic.
Yeah.
Because they understand at some point the little man needs something.
He deserves his too.
Right. And so that's the whole problem. But you got the commissioner over here, and he's seeing the pitchfork crowd, and he's thinking, well, I ain't going to get elected, and I'm not going to be able to help make the schools better or make whatever better. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Jay, you're up the creek. And Jay's not, he's up the creek what he's spent on exploratory research, but the person that's totally hosed is the highest and best use that is just stolen to that property owner.
We've got one right now in a municipality which will remain nameless until I get my final vote in about 6 weeks. But the sisters are about my age. Her father passed away, had a farm he bought in the 1950s. Everything around him was developed. We developed some of it 40 years ago. And then the 2-lane road that was in front of their house, because of all the growth that happened around them, it was changed to a 5-lane highway. Then a brand new massive high school was built across from their property. And it was all built because of growth. The growth that had already happened and the growth that was continuing to happen. And so we went to zone something that was comparable to everything around there, and the folks came out in droves. And the staff of the municipality recommended it remain agricultural. And the logic was there's not enough, they were in a food desert. Well, a food desert is, the definition of food desert isn't that you don't have farms around you, it's that you don't have grocery stores. And they had grocery stores within 5 minutes of them in every direction, but they were afraid to lose this. And it's all wooded now. It's not being farmed anyway. But no, they just need to leave it agricultural. So now I think they worked around it, but what we used to encounter was the crowd had one opinion, and you knew what it was going to be. It was always no. It was no for, we've been doing this for 47 years. It's been no for 47 years. But the staff was professional.
Right.
And there was a professional respect between the staff and the professionals in our business that were There were the engineers, the attorneys, that kind of thing, and us. And then the commissions and the city councils, they just they more objective, never were fully objective, but they were more objective. So, but now it is completely different, and it's really just changed dramatically in the last 10 years. There are municipalities around that are really terrific and are very busy, but that's the exception now rather than the rule.
Well, this goes back all the way to 1776, maybe even before it, but every piece of property has a bundle of rights.
A what?
Bundle of rights, all right? Right to use it, right to do what you want, right to be a good neighbor, all those things. And as you take that density away, you take this use away, you're taking the bundle of rights. I would argue that it's actually the director of community development for XYZ county or city needs to be as independent as the appraiser.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a dog in the fight. Any job I do is my fee, right? So whatever my fee is, it doesn't make a difference to me if it appraises for $2 or $100 million. As long as I do my job well, the rest of it's irrelevant. The community development person should be the same way. Mm-hmm. They have to have the whole community in mind, sure, again, but allowing all the people that have come from elsewhere to say, I want to be the last one in here. I want to put up a gate. Mm-hmm. I've seen it in my own immediate community. They took away high density with zoning from a person. Then they took away a Christian school.
Mm-hmm. That has a public school in the same street.
Right. And it's because, and the people get so worked up, you can't use facts with them. The community people.
No.
They get unhinged, and it's development derangement syndrome, maybe.
Maybe that's what it is. I used the phrase that one zoning director, participant on it, he was talking about the crowd, and I said, the crowd will give you Barabbas.
Right.
And once he looked it up, he realized he didn't want to be part of that crowd.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you want to talk about zoning a little bit, because
sure,
the reason we're talking to you as an appraiser, we're going to talk to a traffic engineer, trying to find somebody from the school system in this area that we're sitting in had historically one of the strongest school systems in the state. And in the metro Atlanta areas for 50 years has been one of the fastest growing municipalities in the nation. And we're in the heart of that metropolitan area here where we're sitting today. This municipality went from 1 acre minimums in the north half of their county to 2 acre minimum lot sizes. They went from 1 acre minimum lot sizes to 5 acre minimum lot sizes in the south end of the county. Mm. In the fastest growing county, the fastest growing municipality in the nation, last year they had to lay off 70 Board of Education employees. In the last 5 years, they closed 2 elementary schools. They built a 3rd elementary school, and it never had enough people to open it.
Right.
Never opened it. 23 years ago, I think it was, there were 2 high schools. There were 4,200 students. They made those zoning changes on their density. That at the same time, though, they decided to build a 3rd high school. Mm. Now, 22 years later, fastest growing municipality in America, there's 4,100 students at those 3 high schools combined. So you have 100 less kids than you did 23 years ago. You have 3 less elementary schools, 70 less employees. I think that's a huge indictment on reduced density and zoning.
Sure it is. Where I grew up, my brothers are 10 and 13 years older than me. DeKalb County, North DeKalb County had two of the largest high schools in the state that were 1.8 miles apart.
Wow.
When my brother graduated in 1984, he graduated from Peachtree High School. I graduated in 1995 from Dunwoody High School. By 1988, there wasn't enough student body. DeKalb County was closing schools everywhere because little Jimmy and Johnny are off at college. And I lived in three neighborhoods back to back. Say there was 300 houses. There was 15 kids my age in 300 houses because most everybody was in the season of Jimmy just finished Georgia Tech or he's starting his new job, but mom and dad still live here.
Yeah, that's what happened to this county.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is it doesn't change.
It just becomes a large retirement community.
Well, Dunwoody now is the largest high school in DeKalb County, right? But that was also 7th to 12th grade, and DeKalb County also changed their model to a junior high model. I think a lot of that had to do with, 7th grader really doesn't need to be around 11th grader.
Right.
But also, you have all these facilities. It was at one time the most efficient run county in the state of Georgia. Things have life cycles. It's back to the same as but think about it. The only kids that homeschooled when I was a kid, hey, they were a little different. You know what I mean? Now, homeschooling in these co-ops, and then you have, when I grew up, you know what the private schools were? There was Westminster, Marist, Woodward, St. Pius, and that was it if you were an athlete. And so,
well, that's because you grew up in Dunwoody, man. Down here it was.
I grew up in South Dunwoody. Everybody thinks that Dunwoody is Buckhead, and it wasn't. It was just normal people. My mother bought a house in 1973 here, or in Dunwoody, right? She could have bought in Fayetteville or Lithonia. She looked in both places. My Uncle Ben, that's how my parents met, but my Uncle Ben, the realtor, just happened to show her this house that was 10 years old, and the guy got transferred to Washington, D.C.
Well, you couple that with falling birth rates and slower household formation.
Well, but hey, I never dreamed I'd own a house as expensive as the one I own now. I still don't think I can afford what the entry production house in the county I live in is.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I don't work, I don't eat. I don't have, it's real direct.
Yeah.
Again, I have that tremendous sympathy for the school system too. How do you get the best teachers when they can't afford the homes in your county?
Well, that's the point of all this. So
right. I mean, you've got to have the smaller density, the smaller stuff, townhome, smaller product. Nothing's bad about the product. It's got similar finish levels to the other price point stuff in a lot of ways.
You see it every day.
Yes, I live it.
Yeah, you see the product every day. So that's good because you circle back to we need teachers.
Sure. And you need them in the community. If they're commuting from an hour and a half away, they can't be at your kids' whatever to support them, which impacts your child's life. I mean, this is really bizarre that people don't see anything but, ooh, that evil builder.
Well, that's what we're fighting for is we need teachers, police officers, all the first responders, nurses in our community. We need them. Mm-hmm. And we need forklift operators. Our governor is out recruiting industry like crazy, but all the municipalities are willing to have the people look at their businesses there, but they have no regard. And I'm hoping it's not intentional. And so
I think it's silo vision or tunnel vision.
It is that for sure. And so you're looking at a situation where you laid out where DeKalb County, that area of Dunwoody, just got older.
All of DeKalb County. It was
Yeah.
Tucker. It was everywhere. It wasn't
At the
just
same time, DeKalb County became a very difficult place to do business. So much so, there was a local engineering firm, one of the largest engineering firms in the state, that you would walk into their lobby and it had a whiteboard and it said, rule number 1, do not accept jobs in DeKalb County. Rule number 2, see rule number 1.
wow.
It was so difficult to do business there. And so it's not a surprise that there wasn't new construction. Now, I will say this. I met the chief of staff for the CEO of the county recently. She seemed very forward thinking. Met the planning director. They seem to own the issues that they had. So hopefully they're going to make some changes.
Well, in DeKalb, you're speaking of DeKalb County.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope so because I've spent some time in DeKalb County courts here lately, and it's different than it was, and they've got to undo, just like anything. If you're trying to redo a culture for your business or your county,
That tear it down.
well, I don't know if you got to tear it down, but you got to reboot,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't mean fire everybody. There's a local guy running for a small office in a small town close by that's threatening to fire everybody. Well, that ain't going to work because you know what it is? Nobody's going to know where the ink pens are or the zoning forms or anything else. If you fire everybody,
Yeah.
no, you need to look at everybody on merit, but hopefully that person won't get elected
Yeah.
because I think it's an I, me, my program. I don't believe it's for the benefit. I believe that government is for everybody, that it should be blind. You know those scales of justice? What's in the middle is it's a lady, right? Holding the
Lady
scales.
Liberty.
Yeah. Is that who's holding the scales of
I think
justice?
so.
But she's blindfolded.
Yeah.
That means she doesn't see anything. Skin color, faith, none of that. Right?
Right.
I don't see it as an appraiser. There's lots of conversation about appraisers being biased towards race. There are crooks in every industry. There are horrible people in every industry. But the appraiser's got to have the stainless steel backbone. And one of my interesting phrases that I use, client will call me. Nobody's ever upset about anything but the value, right? If it's more than they think, they never call, right? But if it's less than they think, they're giving me up the river. And one of my phrases over 25 years is, hey, I'm the same guy you liked 3 days ago when I was at your house,
Yeah.
right? Real estate is very personal to everybody. The pitchfork crowd, the flaming torch crowd, it's personal to them. They're scared. It's their most valuable asset, more than likely, is their house.
Right.
But they don't understand that if there's not growth, there's only two things in real estate: growth and death.
Well, I know what growth is. Explain death in real estate.
Death in real estate is people say, hey, I can't live here, I can't work here because there's not good schools, there's not strong municipalities. In North Fulton County, my grandparents' house caught on fire. My father's in the attic trying to put it out with a hose. Because Fulton County didn't have any real fire department in North Fulton.
Wow.
And they finally built one, and then everybody decided instead of that will go down as the biggest mistake in Metro Atlanta history. This idea that everybody needs to open their own city,
Oh. Yeah, we got a lot of cities now.
that's a mistake because that's multiple government. They give the fire station to Milton, but nobody knows how to run the fire truck.
Yeah.
I mean, no.
When I started in the industry on the zoning side, I would run into fairly routinely people trying to stop zonings because of race, and some parts of Metro Atlanta, and it was ugly and it was disappointing because, at that point I was late 20s, early 30s, and I'm kind of thinking we'd got past that stuff, and of course in Metro Atlanta we grew up in a microscope on the nation on the civil rights and everything.
Sure.
So I'd hope that, but honestly, man, until the mid '90s, it was fairly routine to experience white people not wanting growth because of race. And like I said, it was really disappointing. But then what happened is the growth happened, and and we developed and built a lot of houses. Chris mentioned that at a podcast recently that we've been part of building 15,000 houses or more than 15,000 houses. And
And for the record, do you know how many of those I appraised?
zero.
Zero. I have never done a work
Oh yeah.
for Night Homes,
Okay.
even before I knew who you were. Now, the disclaimer is
Well, I gotta get your name off that list.
that's right. And here's the simple. I've had lenders for years. Oh, you need to be doing all the night's work. My joke was, Perry doesn't like appraisers. He barely likes me. I want to keep it that way. I don't want Scott trying to kill me at Thanksgiving supper. But no, the truth of the matter is, it's an ethical gray area that's not necessary.
Well,
So I don't want anybody to sit here and think, wait a minute, this is Jay's ringer.
Yeah, no.
Because I'm not. I'm
No.
not at all. I've never done work for anything that my wife was involved in.
Yeah. Well,
I've picked their brain a lot.
well, after my experience to the '90s, what happened is it did become very segregated, and you had pockets we were doing business where there were Republican councils and commissions, and pockets there were Democrat councils and commissions. The Democrats were much easier to work with on density. That was 25 years ago. Now there seems to be a whole different type of segregation. The last 5 to 10 years, there's a socioeconomic segregation that's happened, and I can't quite put my finger on it because we, in a sober conversation with any of these people, they would all admit we need teachers, cops, nurses, firefighters, forklift operators, Uber drivers. We need everybody. We need everybody in our community. But they use the justification that the numbers provide, the numbers of people provide, to participate in some of the ugliest human behavior you would ever see. It's fine. You can come put out my fire. You can come police my streets. But when the sun comes down, you got to go 45 minutes to an hour away to your home where you raise your family. I don't see. It's been 20 years since I've seen it be an obvious racial issue, but it's been replaced with a socioeconomic justification for segregation. That's how we're segregating ourselves, is by income. And unfortunately, by the time places wake up and recognize what's happening, it's too
The
late.
decline's already gone.
Yeah, it's happened, and the land is now
Worth 20
carved
cents on
up.
the dollar.
It's carved up into too big a parcel to make any difference. Like right now in the county we're sitting in, you couldn't. There's not enough raw land to make an appreciable difference in what's already happened.
You know,
The die was cast 25 years ago.
well, in our county we're sitting in, there's this fairyland, magical
Yeah.
neighborhood,
Yeah.
right? That we're not going to name, but it's a fairyland. And I was asked by a lender to go as a consultant, and I told him, I said, this is a fairyland. I said, I don't know any millionaires that want to ride by an apartment complex to go to their $1 million house. But I've been proven wrong by that. Evidently, they do.
Well, people
But-
will be in that place.
But that place is also false in that as long as sandwiches are selling, that deal will never fail. And I have no fault to the owner of that development. I'm not.
No.
But it's not, he's not developing it to eat.
No.
He's developing it
It's
because he thinks it's cool. And that's
Well,
cool.
Well, for me, I put that in perspective. So this, for the folks that are local here, we have a local billionaire, super guy, and a super family. They've been very instrumental in our area.
And they're
And
wonderful people.
they are
not,
wonderful
it's
people.
no,
And,
it's not a negative on him.
No, but where I might want to create my own village, I could buy my Lionel train set, and I could get the styrofoam houses and things, and I could design a little village, and I could turn on the train, and my wife would pray for me while I went and watched the train run around the track. Well, in this case, this gentleman was able to his train set, because he's got billions of dollars. He's got real people, real people living in there, and real restaurants and real stores, and
And churches and
I
participation.
really go there a lot, actually, because it's really nice.
And,
But
I appraise there, but this had a purpose, by the
Yeah.
way. There are no comps outside that development for that development. And that's a reality. All right.
yeah,
You can't say, I mean, your uncle said to his doctor, I can build you the same house outside of it for half price.
yeah,
But they want it in there,
yeah.
and that's fine. I don't eat as bougie as you do. I eat at the Waffle House still. I'm a true Atlantan. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But
Oh, you know what? You're just trying to get your street cred back from growing up in Dunwoody, man.
that's right.
That's all it is. You're so damn guilty for that.
Well, it's funny. Our high school coach called us the Pork and Bean Boys, talking about the kids from the South Side and the country club kids. And 20 years later, I reminded him that the only time I'd ever been to the country club was for the football banquet.
Yeah.
And still to this day, never been back.
Yeah.
But not my scene. Um, there's got to be a reset of people's mindset. That people don't think about the fact that you're a 60-year-old, 55-year-old developer, banker, candlestick maker, whatever you are. They don't remember, wait a minute, you remember when you were 28 and it was all you could do to pay that first mortgage on that house that cost $12,000 in Hapeville, and the interest rate was 18%? Well, now we make 10 times what we made then, and the car costs 10 times what we made then, and the house costs
30 times.
Right. Well, it all does. I mean,
Yeah.
I always, in my study of case and value, I always go back to cars, right? A new 74 K5 Blazer was the fanciest truck you could buy.
When?
It's at 1974.
Really?
Yeah. $4,200. Listed for $4,200 out the door. Same as a Cadillac.
Let's pause right here. So, how many cars do you own again?
It's not, I'm not under oath. I don't have to answer that question. But I have a 74 K5 Blazer that was sold new in Rawson. And so
And you got a big building to keep.
that was my father's car when I was a kid. He bought my mother when they got married. My mother, said, you need a new truck, and she went and bought him a truck. My mother was a widow. Anyway, long story. But $4,200 for the fanciest Blazer money could buy. The same vehicle today costs $108,000. The comparable vehicle. 40 years later.
Yeah.
You know what hadn't kept up with that? The appraiser's fee. Because you know what the appraisal costs? All right, okay, so jump ahead 10 years. A new loaded, fanciest Silverado pickup from General Motors. $13,000. I was sitting there when my dad signed the bill of sale to get a new 85 pickup. Again, my pickup in the yard cost $80,000. The appraisal fee was $300 then. The appraisal fee now is $400. $450, $500 maybe, if I'm lucky.
You missed the point of this podcast, Tom.
No, I'm arguing for more money, baby. But it's all the same. The appraiser, the only appraisers I know that are loaded are the ones that figured out a way to do something else other than be an appraiser.
Yeah.
Or have two jobs. My professor at Florida State that had a PhD and ran a full-time appraisal practice that he's still running at 78 years old, and he retired from teaching.
Really?
He worked 2 full-time jobs and lived off his professor income. The rest of the appraisers are trying to struggle. I mean, there's lots of appraisers that can't afford to live in the markets they work in.
Yeah.
I know one in this market that became a builder. I don't know him well. I've met him a time or two, but I know others that know him well, and he's killing it.
Yeah.
But bring all that back to how do we get affordability under control? It's by more density. It's by more entry price points. It's the only way you make your community better. And I don't care as an appraiser. When I pull up to appraise it, it is what it is.
But what we can say conclusively from this,
Back to your first question. You want me to go all the way back to your first question?
yeah.
The simple answer is the 20-year-old home is not impacted by the brand new product, period. Unless you get a really cool government that reduces your property taxes because, hey, here's some new property tax stuff coming online. But they don't seem to do that.
Now, so that's a fact. That's the fact.
Right.
And
That's an absolute.
yeah, that's an absolute fact. So
Because it's a different product type.
Different
If you were
product
building the same product type, same size lots, the answer would be a different one.
but if it was the same size, same product, it would raise the value
Sure.
of the neighboring
Right.
property.
It doesn't impact the value at all.
So I would also contend that it gives justification for new shopping, new entertainment, better emergency services. So what we're hoping is that this will be a tool that when people who watch this, our audience is made up of industry professionals. And so somebody will be watching this that has an active zoning case, but also we're very fortunate that we do have people that work for municipalities that watch this as well. And there's not the other side of the argument is rarely heard. And so we needed a professional appraiser to give their thoughts on what the impact of new development. And although we talked about a lot of stuff,
Right.
one thing that was easy to knock down was that typically there's either no impact or an appreciable improvement to the neighboring area. And so I think that this was valuable for me specifically to hear you confirm that and expand on some of your experiences.
You know, the last analogy I'm going to give back to that original thing is the people, if you're hearing this, need to think about this. The owners of an 8-year-old Lexus aren't impacted by the cost of a new pickup truck, right? The value doesn't increase on your Lexus because of my pickup truck. And it's the same with the housing product. It's, you know, the two things, they just happen to be next to each other.
And they have to share the road.
Right.
And so the neighbors, they have to share some aspects of the community they live in. But the Lexus and the truck, to your point, have figured out how to successfully figure it out.
Right. All
Hey,
right.
man, Tom,
Thanks.
thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Again.
Love you. Thank you.
Man, thank you for being here.